not just able to listen, but willing to listen. And that can be, what it can be to the people that you report to. It can be to your staff. It can be to your market,
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Ronin Leadership Podcast. It's Monday morning, kind of chilly here in Las Vegas, but we have the sun, so that's a good thing. Thanks to all of you for subscribing to my channel. We are continuing to grow our subscribership on a weekly basis. So if you like the content, please continue to comment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tell your friends, your family, and even your enemies about the podcast, because the enemies can also learn something, hopefully, from this. And as I always do with my shameless plug, I have 2 books out on leadership. One is The Art of Ronin Leadership, which is my first one, sort of a macro journey into leadership and a lot of mistakes I made along the way, but hopefully learn from them. And then the second one that came out is The Art of Executing Ronin Leadership Strategies, which is more of a how-to build teams, how to get funding from the C-suite, all that other good stuff. I've got another book coming out very soon, but it's totally different. It's going to be an action thriller. I've got more on that coming soon. So I've gotten a kick out of writing that. So without further ado, I am very happy to have a good friend of mine, good friend of Janice's, Gordon Prouty. Gordon is the Vice President of Communications and Public Affairs, I believe, for the Westgate Hotel. Gordy and I met through a mutual friend of ours who Gordon also, he'll talk about this a little bit, but he's got a journalist background, and through a good friend of ours, Patty Payne in Seattle, we were able to connect when Janice and I moved into the Valley. So thank you, Gordy, for taking time out of I know your very busy schedule to hang out with us and talk all things leadership and business.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to do that. And I hadn't heard about this other book, so I'm wondering if the action book is going to be your antics on the Las Vegas Strip, but that's for another conversation, right?
Yeah, that would be more like a comedy book. Well, first of all, you are an executive for one of the major hotels in Las Vegas. You wear many hats, and we can get into that. But maybe we could start by walking the audience through your business and professional journey. How did you get to be where you are?
Well, it's really a long, taking a cue from a Beatles song, a long and winding road. This was I never really saw an opportunity like this coming along. I started a long time ago with the newspapers in Syracuse, New York, on the ad sales side, and was there for a number of years and kind of worked up through middle management and a number of things. While I was in Syracuse, I had the opportunity to be an adjunct instructor at the Newhouse school at Syracuse. And, everything was great. I then decided I wanted to kind of do more of a larger market challenge, and went to Philadelphia, joined the Philadelphia newspapers, and eventually became national ad director, retail ad director there. Spent about 6 years and got some great experience. And that was in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the newspaper advertising business was really at one of its highest points, if you will. From there, was recruited to go to San Francisco, and went to the San Francisco Chronicle, led their classified ad department, and then shortly thereafter became their vice president of advertising. Then went to become vice president of Newspapers First, which is a rep firm that unfortunately doesn't exist any longer, but we would rep a number of newspapers to national advertisers on the West Coast, because a lot of the smaller newspapers couldn't afford to do that. Then joined the business journals, which kind of gets to where you and I met. I was running advertising for the San Francisco Business Times, and eventually was promoted to publisher up in Seattle at the Puget Sound Business Journal, where I had the opportunity to work with the amazing Patty Payne. Did that for a while, and then came down here to Las Vegas as group publisher of Greenspun Media, which is Las Vegas Weekly, Las Vegas Sun, Las Vegas Magazine while there, built a great relationship with a number of the properties here, in particular, Westgate Las Vegas. And when the opportunity came to join them as part of their team to take on the role of, leading their public relations and community affairs, I took that opportunity, but it really was the first time. Most of my background had been, either in publishing and really primarily on the revenue side. And this has been, it's been a real learning opportunity for me. And it's really been tremendous. Gotten to do, the 4 years I've been here, I've gotten to see and experience things that, I never could have dreamed of. So it's been great.
Yeah, I can imagine. You're also obviously the most stylish guy in Las Vegas, which is
hardly, but thank you. You know what I say about that? Old guys need to try harder. So
yeah, amen to that. Hey, it truly is a long and winding road. As you were progressing in your journey, had you ever had the desire to lead? Was that ever a conscious thing that you thought of? Like some people I got to be a manager. I want to do this. Was that ever part of that, or did it just sort of happen?
I don't think, not when I first started. I started with the newspapers right out of school. I'd gotten involved doing some ad sales for the college newspaper and kind of like that, and started taking some advertising courses in my senior year and really enjoyed that. And, was on the sales side for really the first 4 years of my career. And I really enjoyed that. And I had the opportunity to take on I used to call it some project leadership roles. And I enjoyed it, working with a team and kind of, getting them organized and working together to achieve a goal. And, I enjoyed it. And then I was asked if I would be interested in taking on an assistant manager role in the classified department at that time. And, I did it and liked it. And it's kind of been a thing where I've enjoyed, that type of leadership. This role here is a little bit different because over the years, I've had different size staffs, whether it be one vertical of advertising revenue or an entire department, or multiple locations and that type of thing. And then, in this role, I'm really kind of heading up the public relations community affairs for the property, but I don't have the type of staff that I once had. So it's a little bit different, but no, it wasn't anything like growing up. It's like, I want to be a leader of people, and it kind of evolved. And now I really enjoy the idea, but I guess I look at leadership a little bit differently in that, I just find it as someone, kind of guiding a group to accomplish things rather than being, the person, the person in charge.
When you got into your current role, was the role well-defined, or did you have to kind of define what this means, public community relations?
It didn't exist here. So I would say, yeah, I'm defining it. They were working with a public relations firm. And I think there were different people that were different paths they were working on in community relations and all of that. But it really was coming in and defining it. And it worked, you talk about timing, it just worked out really well. I had built a friendship and a good relationship with Cami Christensen. And when I came here, and when she and Don Rawl is the vice president of marketing and entertainment, when they brought me in shortly after that, Cami was promoted to president and general manager. And so as she was, setting up her leadership and her team and her role, I was given a lot of leeway in kind of establishing what my role and what the duties would be. And it's just worked out really well. And I think it was a benefit that I had been in a media company and knew a lot of the media people and folks like that in town. So I had relationships established. I had done a lot of work with a number of the nonprofits, community and civic organizations. So relationships were there, and it's just, it's worked out well. And, I mentioned Cami, her leadership and her support has been incredible. And being able to represent and tell the story of, Westgate Las Vegas. I don't know if all of your your subscribers and your viewers and listeners are really familiar with the history of the property, but that's been a really cool thing too, to be at the property that's really been, paralleled the history of the development of Las Vegas, opening as the International in '69, being the home of Elvis Presley and Liberace, and, now getting to work with David and Jackie Siegel and all that they're doing with Victoria's Voice Foundation, the fight against the opioid crisis, and, having Barry Manilow here. You don't want me to go on and take on that other hat, but it's been a great opportunity to really define and develop the role.
Yeah, it's always fun when you can kind of carve out your niche, right? And create something out of whole cloth. I've always enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. So, along the way with both your career in journalism and now at the Westgate, and you mentioned Cammie, and I agree, she's a great leader. You're a great leader, in my opinion. When you look at leadership, what are some of the traits that sort of come to mind for you?
I guess some of it is, I look at some of what I think are important is I look at leadership. I think a lot of people tend to think, if you're asked about your leadership style or what's leadership, they tend to define it and try to define it in one way. And I look at it as, from back in my CrossFit days where they talked about the CrossFit workouts being a constantly varied and all that. I look at leadership as constantly evolving. So I think one of those traits that you have to have is to be able to evolve with whatever that would be, whatever the situation, whatever the market conditions, whatever staff challenges and things like that. So I look at a trait of being able to evolve and adapt. I think it's critical that you're not just able to listen, but willing to listen. And that can be, what it can be to the people that you report to. It can be to your staff. It can be to your market. In this world, there are so many different people that you have as a part of your customer base, if you will. It's your guests, it's your team members, it's your vendors, it's your entertainers. So I think that being able to listen, I think, being able to be persistent, give up, there's a lot of challenges. When I was looking over some notes earlier, and I think it was something about obstacles and all that. And I think no one, there's a lot of things you can think about and plan for in terms of some of your challenges, like if it's going to be a certain market condition or a difficult customer or a busy season or whatever. We've all come out of something that, none of us could have anticipated. There was no playbook, you look at the pandemic and all of that. And even though I think we're, further along and on the other side of it, still challenges there. But I think that idea of being persistent, being able to persevere, again, evolve, because that threw challenges at us that, we could never have anticipated. Right. We're coming up very quickly on the anniversary. And I think you and I have talked about this before, that it was like March 16th, I believe it was 2020. And, 6:00 that evening, the governor says everything's shutting down. And, people had heard a little bit about it, but we basically, as a leadership team here, had about 3 days to put that in place. And for people that aren't from Las Vegas or aren't in this industry, think about a property that had been open for 51 years. Wow. And that was the first time it had ever been closed. We didn't even know how to lock. We weren't even sure about locking all the doors and all that type of thing. The front doors had never been locked. So I do think there's that perseverance. I think also being honest and trustworthy. When I look back at different people I've worked with, the ones I admire most sometimes were people that had to have maybe some of the most difficult conversations with you, but always honest. You could always trust them. Those are some of the key traits that I think are important. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that I found too, as I was thinking about different leaders, and I think a trait that I like to think I have, and I'm sure you do, is that idea of selflessness. Mm-hmm. And there have been times over the years when, I remember the first time I got a big promotion to vice president. And, a month or two in, I had to kind of slap myself because I started to I felt like, something about, oh, well, I'm a VP now and all this. And you've always got to be, for me, I think it's important to always be sure that you're seen as, and that you picture yourself as a part of the team and not above that team. You're leading them, but I think it's important that they see you as working with them and being a part of them. When you have to stand up and make those tough decisions and have some of those conversations, I think they respect it more if they feel that you're with them and a part of the team.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, the worst thing you can do as a leader is believe your own BS and press, right? So.
Yeah, and there have been times when I have. So.
Yeah. Well, I've never done that, but no.
No.
Of course I have. We all have. That's how you learn.
Yeah.
There are a lot of perks, obviously, that come with being in charge, but there's some downsides. It's like you kind of alluded to that during the pandemic, but. Lately, especially in the industry I came from, the tech industry, they've been laying off people left and right. They got too bloated, during the good times. We all, as leaders, have had to let people go at some point. What's your approach? Because I've got some horror stories from people I know still in the industry who've been laid off by a teleconference or some other thing. When you've had to do it, how have you approached it?
It's been there. I guess I look at that again, like I look at a lot of different things. There's no one approach. It's all about the situation. Because, there was one time at one of the properties where we had about across the company, 200 layoffs. And in my department, we had to let 18 people go.
Wow.
And, there's no real good there's no great way to approach that. And I remember looking back, and this was a while ago, and that everybody kind of knew that there was going to be a day coming, but they didn't know when, and they didn't really know who. And, I think that it was organized and communicated as well as it could have been on the day of, but it was still difficult. I mean, it was sort of that thing where, somebody walks in a room and you're tapped on the shoulder and there's enough out there that it's going to happen. What I think went well in something that's that big and organized is that we were able to not only have the conversation with them and let them know, but we also had set up people who were going to be talking about other opportunities, talking to them about, okay, here's what you need to know about your benefits and what's going to happen in any kind of package you were getting. Here are going to be the career resources that are valuable to you. So I think that went pretty well. In smaller sessions, if you're really talking about layoffs, I think what has gone well is, really just an open and frank conversation with explaining to people. And I'm thinking one now where we had to just let, a couple of people go. And it was really just being upfront with them about the business decision. There have been times when it really wasn't anything to do with their performance. They hadn't done anything wrong. It was just a decision that we had to make, for the company.
Right.
And then there are those times when you have to have a discussion with someone where they're being let go because of a performance issue. And maybe that's for a different topic, but I think if you've done all the proper communication and worked with that person and exhausted all of the options, they're never surprised there.
Right. Yeah.
And then I've told you before, I've been involved in a situation where, maybe it wasn't the smartest thing in the world, but I was in a room where we were looking at decisions that we had to make for the company, and we were, very top heavy on management, and I had to make, looking at it, if you're truly a business executive with the company's best interest at heart, sometimes the decision you make isn't good for yourself. And so, I was in a situation where I said, rather than cutting all this staff, there's a senior leadership position that you really could probably do without right now and save some of that. Unfortunately, that was mine, but we had to look at it that was what was best for the company. And sometimes you have to make those decisions, but I think it just all gets down to anything like that. Good communication, honest communication. And if you've been the kind of person that they've trusted all along, it's still not going to make it's not going to make the news any easier. But I think that the people that are involved will understand it, at least at some point.
No, I agree. I think it alludes to what you were saying before with some of the leadership characteristics, right? About, being selfless, treating people like people, not as commodities, but they're living, breathing human beings with feelings. Mm-hmm. You talk about being selfless, putting your position on the line too, right? To make the best business decision.
Well, and I think too, and I think we mentioned this, is that I've always believed that I would never ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. And I think one of the cool things, and I think maybe why a lot of our leadership team here at Westgate Las Vegas are so close and get along, is because it is a little bit different. We are, it's a large hotel, but we're not one of the big groups. Westgate has a number of properties around the country, but it's just one in Las Vegas. And, there's a lot of things we do as a leadership team that maybe vice presidents of other properties wouldn't do. Mm-hmm. But, we're very hands-on. That's always something that I've always wanted to, I've always kind of felt that was a part of my leadership style. And our team members here appreciate it. They see us out there with them on the floor. They see us here on the weekends when things are really busy and jumping in. I think they appreciate that. We have a program here where we have, because it's interesting, weekends can be our busiest time, but a lot of times, a lot of the leaders are technically off on the weekend. But, we like to be here, especially if there's a big event. But we have a program called Leader on Duty. And we mm-hmm. make sure that there is always a manager, director, whatever, who's not just available, but actually staying on the property for the weekend. So if anything, I love that. They can help coordinate that. So it works out well. And we've got, they're very visible while they're here. And I think for some of the people that aren't typically, they get exposed to some other parts of the property and the operation that they may not be familiar with. And it's a great learning tool for them. But that's been really good because I'm still learning things every day. I mean, this is a big place. And,
that's what makes it fun though, learning every day, right?
Oh yeah. It's a lot of hours and all that, but that's the other part of it too, is making sure we talk about all the strategies and the buzzwords and all that. But the other thing is they've got to enjoy. It doesn't always have to be fun, right? But you've got to enjoy what you're doing. There's got to be some fun in it, and you've got to feel good about where you work. And that's one of the things that I think is quite remarkable here. That we've got in the back of house, we've got what we call the 40-year wall. And we've got photographs of team members who have worked here on this property for 40 years or more. It's only been Westgate since 2014. We've got right now, I think 62 or 63 team members who are active team members who've been here more than 40 years.
Amazing.
We got two guys who are about to celebrate, I think it's anniversary. It'll be anniversary 51, work anniversary 51 years. And they started 2 days apart. So they've been working together all that time.
Yeah.
And so that's, and they're, there's got to be something, we really respect that, obviously, and that loyalty. But there's got to be something that keeps them here. And, back to Cammie, that's a part of that. She's been here on this property for, I think this year will be 22 years. And so she's worked her way up from hotel manager, which is a front desk position, and worked literally in every department. And so these team members that are around, they know her, they respect her. And I think that's important in a place like this, that everybody knows that, we understand what they're doing and how important their jobs are.
Yeah. I mean, people staying around that long, it says something about the culture. And I love the idea of having a leader on duty, right, at all times, because there's too many times I've seen, people like to step back when they get those lofty positions, right? They're never visible, unless you make a mistake. Then they're very visible, telling you what you did wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I know personally, those of you that are listening to this, you can't imagine how busy this gentleman is on a daily basis. And a question always comes to mind about how do leaders like you, I know every day is not the same, every hour is different, but is it right? Is there a way that, whenever you get some downtime, as you think about downrange, you're looking at the week, is there a way that you slice, like, how do you handle calendaring? How do you handle your email? I mean, how does it work for you to strategize about tackling the week, knowing there's a whole bunch of things that are going to happen that are going to mess any plans up?
Yeah, the idea of the to-do list that you never get to do.
Right.
Maybe my schedule, not really a strategy. I mean, obviously, I take a look at the week ahead on Sundays, usually Sunday evening. It's funny, I think I've mentioned this, growing up, apparently my brother and I had a problem with going to school on Mondays. We always had some kind of a little illness. And I forget, my mom started this rule. I think we might have been 10 or 11. And she came up with this idea: weekends are over at 6 o'clock on Sunday. Homework is done. You're in the house. Meals are done. You're in the, weekend's over, and you're getting ready for the week. And, to this day, I start getting antsy when it gets to be about 5:30 on Sunday if I'm not in the house.
Interesting.
But I kind of take an hour on Sunday evening just to look at the week ahead. And you just kind of might see, okay, are there any big things that are there? Now we have, these, your phone you put in different reminders. So I wanted a day ahead or like that. But I'll take a look at it and just kind of get a feel for, okay, what days are going to be a little bit, what might be a little bit more going on to prep for. Somebody I worked with years ago, I try to schedule, I try to block off, I'll put in like think time or just kind of something in. And most of the time it doesn't work that way a lot of times, but then I have it there if I need it for something else.
Yeah.
I also find I know you're incredibly into your workouts and all of that. And I find that gym time gives me an opportunity to kind of think and plan ahead as well. Yeah. And, because when I like to swim in the morning and I usually do a 20 to 30 minute swim and, you can really think during that time, just think this, because when you're doing that, you're really not, and you're not going to be distracted by anything else. Right. But I think it's kind of just taking a little bit of a look ahead. And then, one thing I've been trying to do a little bit more, because the schedule can be crazy where it can often be 6-7 days, but I'll even try, if I get an opening in an afternoon or something, to maybe leave a little early and just kind of relax, go home and sit on the couch with the dogs or something like that. And, so trying to do a little bit more of that, but juggling the types of things. I think we're lucky technology helps a lot. Because, you don't always have assistants and things like that. But I find trying to schedule, you've got your meetings, your activities, and then I try to schedule the office time when I know if I'm going to work on some, press releases or media alerts, or looking ahead at what, like if we know there's an entertainer or a big event coming up, say 3-4 months down the road, I've got to be plugging in things, based on a timeline of, okay, what needs to be done 2 months out, 1 month out, and just try to balance that. But I find that the most effective thing is taking that either end of weekend or early morning look. The other thing I know, and this sounds almost obsessive, I guess, but when I first wake up, I look at email right away. Okay. And a lot of that is because our corporate is in the East Coast. And so a lot of times it's good to, take a look at something at, 5:15, 5:30, whatever. And then if there's something that really might need to be addressed before, you stroll in a little later. Because I've worked with enough companies here on the West Coast with East Coast headquarters that there's nothing more frustrating for someone at a corporate headquarters than identifying an issue at 9 o'clock their time and then having to wait till noon to get information that they need.
Right. Yeah.
And that can make your day a lot easier. But I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I think because you can't anticipate, you can't, in a place like this, you can't anticipate some of the things that'll happen. I mean, we couldn't anticipate on Saturday that Saturday evening more rain would come in and we'd have an unplanned water feature at a certain part of the casino. You can't plan for those things. Or, the different crowds, because at any given time, here with convention space and the sports book, I mean, we looked at what was happening on Saturday. We had, 3 shows in our cabaret, Barry Manilow in the theater, a band performing in the I-Bar, a gymnastics competition, youth gymnastics going on in the convention center, sports going on all day in the Superbook, then just, regular people having gambling, restaurants, and it's a full house with over 2,900 rooms being occupied. So there's things that are constantly moving. And so you just want to try to have all the things that you can control, you want to control. So when that one thing comes up.
Yeah, no, you answered the question brilliantly, because as much as you can, you put some structure into your thinking, right? I mean, I love that, because I always tried to do the same thing when I was working, like you said, the balloon goes up and all of a sudden that 2-hour window or 1 hour of thinking time, that's gone for now. But you put it on there because you consciously want to say, okay, I need time to think at some point, right? And then and I love how because I was going to ask you about how do you balance the quote work-life balance, which is never work-life balance, but the swimming or getting away early when you can, carving out time for yourself is really important so you don't get burned out, obviously.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too with a job like this, and this is very different than a lot of people, is, there's a lot that's at work and there's a lot of things that you maybe don't enjoy. Like you'll hear people say, well, I have to do this and I have to do that. I can honestly say I get to do this and I get to do that because, if I've got media guests here or I've got something going on, oh, poor me, I'm going to have to go sit in Barry Manilow's amazing show and watch that. Or, some of the comedy shows or, if people are having dinner and you get to meet some amazing people and all that. But, you got to try to have that flexibility because like this past week, I had basically 3 straight days that kind of started at 7:30 in the morning and didn't end until about midnight.
Wow. I could tell you're a CrossFitter because I just had to look up this guy's name, Rich Froning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Rich mentioned something I was watching YouTube the other day because just try to get motivated for working out. And he said the same thing you said about not having, I have to do this workout. I have to do this WOD. I get to do it. And it puts you in a different mindset.
Yeah, I haven't been active in that in a while. I haven't been able to make classes, so I just kind of make up my own workouts. And then when I used to be, they'd make fun of me because that's the worst thing you can do because you always just do the things you really like to do and you don't challenge yourself too much. But every once in a while, I'll throw some burpees or a thruster in there just so I can feel miserable. But
that's good. That's good. Yeah. I guess my last question, and we can wrap this up, is as you're looking into the future, what do you see in the road ahead for you?
Oh gosh, I always like retirement.
Never.
Every time I say that, everybody laughs at me. I'm in a pretty good place right now. I really enjoy this. But as you think about what will you do if you're not, focused, if you're not doing the full, 50, 60 hour work week, I'm involved in a lot of nonprofits. Okay. And I think kind of continuing with that would be important. Anything I can do in mentoring, I think would be enjoyable. But for the foreseeable future, I see a role here. Now maybe they don't, but
I'm sure they do.
But I think continuing, and there's been some great relationships for anybody who's watching who doesn't live in Las Vegas. And, you and I both came here from Seattle. And I remember we were making the announcement that I was leaving the Business Journal, coming to Las Vegas, and that reaction of Las Vegas.
I know, right?
I think, and I will get to a point here, is that there's a lot more here than I think people outside of Las Vegas realize. So, what's in the future? There's so many great organizations that are, about community service. There's such tremendous growth here right now. If anybody hasn't been to Las Vegas in a while and you come in, say towards the end of this year when the Fontainebleau is open and the Sphere is open, there's talk of a baseball stadium, there's talk of an NBA arena, Formula One. But there's beyond that, there's other types of companies that are coming in, and the community is willing, it wants the growth they're having, but also looking to address the other things that we're going to need to address. The education system, we've got this phenomenal school superintendent who's, just working tirelessly to improve that. Healthcare, there's things we've got to do there. I'm on the board of the Nevada Donor Network, and we will be. It's been a struggle, but we're going to have our first real transplant center that's going to be a reality. So I think that, as you look to the future, there's going to be so many opportunities to give back to the community and plus continue to work in the role. So, I'll find some niche there.
Yeah. Well, we've got you for a while, so that's good.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah, you're right. It always struck Janice and me, this idea of a community, right? People don't understand that there's a great community in Las Vegas.
Well, and you guys do so much in that area too. You give back, but I always tell the story. We were on a cruise in the Mediterranean, and someone, they asked, "Oh, where are you from?" It's like, "Oh, we live in Las Vegas." And how many people would say, "I didn't think anybody actually lived there." And I think they thought we all commuted from Los Angeles to work. But it's it's one of the I told people it's such a great place because you've got arguably access to some of the finest dining and entertainment in the world if you want it, but it's all in a manageably yet rapidly growing city, about 2.5 million people. So there's a lot of benefits.
Yeah,
and the dry heat of the summer is not that bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, Gordy, thanks a lot for taking the time out of your schedule. This has been awesome. And any nuggets of that you've been able to give to the audience there is most helpful, because I get comments from subscribers all the time about, hey, this speaker said this, and it really spoke to me about my own work style or my leadership style, or how do I get more productive, and so thanks for sharing your journey and who you are as a leader and a friend that I've obviously grown to admire and respect.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity and hope people will find something helpful.
I'm sure they will. All right. Well, that's it for this edition of the Ronin Leadership Podcast. Like I said before, if you like what you're hearing, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, make your comments. Those comments are very helpful in helping us make the podcast even better and more tailored to what you all want. And until next time, we're going to have another guest, or you may just be listening to me. We'll see. I'm still working on that, but we'll talk to you later. Bye.